and I become King George. And I got all the rights then. And when I stand on the mountain and I say, do it, it gets done. If it don't get done, then I'll move on it. And that's the last thing in the world you want me to do.
They're extra-dimensional beings that they are not what they claim to be.
Your life with dignity. Don't lay down with tears and agony. Living, you're looking at death. It only looks. Living is much more difficult.
You know, most of them don't assume you're actually going to kill them. Most of them assume it's a rape or something like that.
It was like anybody was fair game.
It did not matter. Blood is blood. It didn't matter man, woman, child.
At first, they thought it was a pack of savage dogs. But when they looked closer, they knew it was humans.
We left the curse. Say it! We left the curse.
We lit the gate.
A fire and death.
We lit it.
Oh, this is not nice. Judgment! Judgment! Say it!
We lit the curse.
On her?
On her.
Future generations.
Future generations.
Welcome everyone to the Evil Examined podcast. It is me, none other than splatterpunk horror author Aaron Beauregard and JP Bloodborne that are going to be hosting this week as we move towards getting our final episodes for the third season done. You can expect Katie to return next episode. There's just been a big workload, so we're trying to work through it as best we can. But with this extra evil bonus content that we got for you today, we got a real goodie on tap. I can tell you that. It's going to be something that you really like, JP. I wanted to kind of surprise you with it a little bit. But before we get into our show topic, first I want to remind you guys to head over to www.evilexamined.com to check out all of our content. We've been trying to put up some YouTube videos too, so this episode should also be on YouTube. I know, Gene, you're working on the Skin Deep episode. That will hopefully be up in a little bit. And our episode from 2 weeks ago, Creepy Encounters, is already up. So be sure to check out the YouTube channel, like it if you like it, and subscribe to it because it does help us out. And hopefully someday we can monetize this nonsense.
Also, hit the bell button down below so you get all the latest notification and alerts for the latest videos. Absolutely.
And also, as you know, we're on all the different podcast platforms, so you can check us out there and subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, wherever. And leave a review if you can. If you feel like you really fucking love this shit, like this is your shit, the Evil Examined podcast, you can even go to evilexamined.com on the homepage, scroll down a little bit, and click on the donate button if you want to try and help us out with some of our annual costs. So we do sincerely appreciate it. But I say that also Aaron Beauregard Horror is a tab on the site too. If you want to have a look at any of my horror books, they are there in full glory with the descriptions and pictures for you to check out. So, a lot of exciting stuff on the website. Now, let's get into the meat and potatoes of our episode, which I call the Manhunt Murder.
Ooh.
What do you think this is in relation to? Because we had some talk about topics earlier this week. What do you think this could be, dude?
The Manhunt Murder. Well, it could be one of two things. It could be the actual physical manhunt game where you play as kids outside. I don't know if many people have experienced that game where you hunt each other down. Or it could be the video game by Rockstar, which was really violent and controversial. I'm voting on that one.
You would be right. And for those for our listeners who haven't played Manhunt, this was a PlayStation 2 release. I believe back on November 19th of 2003 is when it went national. And it was on Windows, Xbox, but I think most infamously, maybe PlayStation 2 seems to be what it's most remembered for. For me, anyway, that's the system that I played it on, and you can even still access it on the network today. I believe it's $14.99. I went ahead and downloaded it again last night and played through a couple levels just to kind of remember how much I enjoyed the game. But before we get into the story of the Manhunt Murder, what's your experience with the game, Gene? I know you've downloaded it. Did you ever actually play it though?
Well, there's it's tradition for me to buy games and not play them. I did get a chance to play it back in the. Well, actually, there was 2 games, right? There was Manhunt 1 and 2, right?
Yes.
I did play some of 2 back in the day, but I never got a chance to get the original one because my mom, she didn't really buy games for me like that. And I don't think I was working at that time. I'm not sure.
03, I mean, you would have probably still been in school. I think I graduated in 03, and you're a couple years behind me, right? So, but yeah, I mean, this game when it came out, the what was it? The trailers and everything for the game was just incredible. It just was the darkest, and I'm a horror writer, so I love anything to do with like gritty, realistic horror in particular. Like I tend not to go the supernatural route. I tend to go like with realistic. There it is, right? I tend to go with the realistic, hardcore elements, and you can see right there, it almost looks like a rendition of Jason Voorhees on the cover. And essentially, what Manhunt is a game about a character named I believe it's James Earl Cash, if I'm getting the name right, and he is set to go on to be executed. But instead of executing them, they keep him alive, and they almost put him in this sort of Running Man-esque situation, right? Have you ever seen the movie The Running Man with Schwarzenegger?
Well, Arnold.
Yeah. But, and so, Cash...
I hope you have some room for my fist, because I'm going to ram into your stomach.
And Cash is basically spoken to through a speaker system by this fella that is running this game where he has to go through these urban environments that are just destroyed, essentially. Almost fucking, post-apocalyptic, it feels like at some points. But just these gritty environments, and there's various gang members, and you have to kind of kill them in horrible ways. Like, really the only way to get them is to creep on them. And so you're hiding in the shadows, creating noise and distractions and kind of waiting for them to come by. And the longer you hold the button while you're behind them, the more violent the murder will be. So, like, if you just catch him and hold the button for a second, for example, he has a weapon that's a plastic bag in the game. That's the first one you get. And he'll just fucking suffocate him with the plastic bag. And it looks mad disturbing. You know what I mean? Like, they're like, and...
Yeah, it was super disturbing because he used, like, everyday, like, household, like, stuff and products.
Glass shard, right?
It makes sense because he didn't have all these, like, fancy gadgets and shit. He's using, like, shit from the street to, like, equalize the playing field because he was outnumbered, like you said.
Right, but as the game progresses, you'll get things like knives, hammers, baseball bats, and you can just fucking crack somebody's head and explode it. The kill sequences, and they're all like gritty VHS. If you're watching on the YouTube, you can kind of see some of the clips in the background, and it's like, it's just incredibly disturbing. It looks like a snuff film almost. But the way that they do the story, it makes it more than a snuff film, like you're really like trying to survive, but with a character who's pure evil, essentially, right? He's just a murderer. So that's pretty much the game. You're just trying to navigate through these different these different environments and kill people, and the murder gets more intense as it goes on. So I know you said, Gene, you're familiar with some of the controversy of the game. What do you know about the controversy?
Well, mostly the gore. Even though there was other games that were out. Was it banned?
It was banned in New Zealand, I believe, but not elsewhere.
Not elsewhere. Okay, because I know prior to it's not like the first game to have that much gore and violence, because Mortal Kombat was a thing.
But would you say that the violence in this game was much more personal, and it felt like
more realistic?
Felt like you were killing someone in the game, kind of, right?
Yeah. Just because of the manner of execution and shit like that, it wasn't as cartoonish as like my previous example, Mortal Kombat. You're not turning into a dragon, fucking ripping someone in half. You're killing them with a plastic bag, suffocating, stabbing, and it looked pretty for the time. It looked pretty realistic.
Yeah, so let's talk about some of the reception when the game came out, and then I'll move on to some of the controversy, and then we'll get into an event that kind of sparked a huge controversy because someone they claim died over it. But the reception, the PlayStation 2 and PC versions of Manhunt received generally favorable reviews, while the Xbox version received mixed or average reviews, according to the review aggregation website Metacritic. So as of March 26, 2008, the Manhunt series has sold 1.7 million copies worldwide. The 7th Annual Interactive Achievement Awards, the game was nominated for Console Action Adventure Game of the Year. Manhunt received a Gold Sales Award from the Entertainment and Leisure Software Publishers Association, indicating the sales of at least 200,000 copies in the United Kingdom alone. So the game's dark, nihilistic tone and violent nature were singled out by many critics as representing something unique in the world of video gaming. GameSpot concluded that, quote, like it or not, the game pushes the envelope of video game violence and shows you countless scenes of wholly uncensored, heavily stylized carnage. Game Informer also praised the PS2 version's audacity and the complete technical capabilities, stating that it's a frightening premise that places gamers in the psychological impasse. The crimes that you commit are unspeakable, yet the gameplay that leads to these horrendous acts is so polished and fierce that it's thrilling. And I would tend to agree. When I went back and played it, it's very easy. Most anyone, I feel like, that got the game would have no trouble actually playing it based on how it was set up, which is which is great. But then it makes it also easy for like a kid to like play through it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, easily accessible. It's kind of interesting that was there a difference between the two versions, the PS2 and the Xbox?
They don't really. I don't think it was a content difference. I think maybe just like it wasn't as technically sound. Like with PC, you're probably going to be able to modify it however you want. So, and then PlayStation, if you played it like I did, it was just really smooth, and even by today's standards, it was pretty smooth. Although it is not a dual joystick game, it is a single joystick, so that can be a little challenging and clunky, somewhat. But overall, just how the game is shaped and how you play makes it very enticing. And IGN compiled the same console version's overall challenge, calling it a solid, deep experience for seasoned gamers pining for something hardcore and challenging games. And I will say it is a challenging game, though, because if you're spotted, they all flock to you and just beat the shit out of you. You really have to avoid it and live in the shadows in the game,
Yeah.
And then to pick up different weapons, sometimes you'll get spotted and you have a stamina meter, which can run out pretty quickly. so you have to kind of be wary of how much you're running, which are, we've sort of seen that in a lot of other games. But this one, very, very simple in the, what do you call it? The shit on the screen. You know what I'm talking about? Like
the UI
yeah,
interface?
The interface is pretty slick, I think. And the map system's pretty cool too,
Yeah.
Edge gave the console version an 8 out of 10, saying, like GTA, this is more to shock and awe. Within its linear structure, there's a lot of freedom within which to act, much more so than Splinter Cell or Metal Gear Solid 2, the titles which Manhunt closely resembles. And these are a couple of reviews that I thought were kind of interesting. One is the Toronto Star, writer Ben Rayner. He praised the relevance of the game, defending its violence and graphic nature as very much a product of time and condemning calls to have it banned. So he was fighting for it. As entertainment and cultural artifact, Manhunt is totally disturbing, but so is the evening news. And the I'll eat anything for money lunacy of Fear Factor and the unfettered misanthropic gunplay of Bad Boys 2. So I will defend until my last breath Rockstar's right to sell this stuff to anyone else who wants it. Do I think games such as these could have a dire psychological consequences, particularly for young people? As always, I remain agnostic on the matter. Who knows, really? The debate will never be resolved. The American military obviously thinks there's something there. The troubling new TV ad campaign for the U.S. Reserves lures potential young soldiers with tales of adventure accompanied by blatant video game-style animation. And curiously, no one has complained about that or tried to ban SOCOM U.S. Navy SEALs, in which stealth and killing figure even more heavily than Manhunt.
That was my shit back in the day.
Yeah, you like that shit?
Yeah, SOCOM was amazing. But
he makes a good point, right?
He does make a good point, especially with the news being a form. I think the news is more influential than video games overall, because it covers a bunch of negative shit, disturbing shit all the time. Every time I listen to the news, I'm more disturbed than I was prior.
And depressed too, right?
And depressed, yeah. Well, yeah, and you don't blame the person reporting the news. It's just showing, they're just shedding a spotlight on a certain,
I kind of do though, because they handpick what to show a lot of times, and that cherry picking, they won't actually make time for the good things a lot of times.
That's true.
I'm talking.
I meant in a way like video games, like music and video games and other forms of media. There's so much emphasis on the content. Like sometimes they're like, oh, you can't talk about that. You can't talk about this. But a lot of stuff and subjects are part of life. So, they deserve some spotlight too.
Yeah. And then let's check out this review from the Chicago Tribune. They were especially complimentary of the game, arguing that it marked a significant moment in video gaming history. Manhunt is easily the most violent game ever made. It will likely be dismissed as a disgusting murder simulator with no reason to exist. But Manhunt also is the Clockwork Orange of video games, holding your eyes open so that you don't miss a single splatter, asking you, is this really what you enjoy watching? Had Manhunt been poorly made using a snuff film angle as a cheap gimmick, the game would have been shameful and exploitive. What elevates it to a grotesque, chilling work of art is both the presentation and the gameplay. Manhunt is a solid game. It's engaging to use the stealth as you creep through the streets of the wicked city, using your smarts to avoid death, while dishing out as much as you can. It's Ubisoft's Splinter Cell meets the cult Faces of Death videos. If Manhunt succeeds at retail, it will say more about America's fascination with violence than any political discourse or social debate. This makes Manhunt the most important video game of the last 5 years? What do you think?
Maybe back then, yeah. That seems about right.
I like the Clockwork Orange comparison, and it's saying, force you to watch, is this what you like? And I just go, yes,
Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, at that time, I don't remember any other game. Well, Rockstar is known for controversy. I'm not sure about the timeline. Because they have Bully. That was super controversial when it first came out. I'm not sure. Did they come up with Suffering? The Suffering? That was super violent.
Yeah, I don't know who did that one. That's an overlooked one, honestly. But I will say, like, Bully, there's a certain lighthearted nature to it. It was controversial because it involved kids sort of picking on each other, but you can't murder anyone in the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
or GTA. GTA has long-standing track record of controversy.
But I think that this game is easily way worse than GTA just because of the dark and gritty realm that you're in. It just feels so real. In GTA, when you're running people over with the car or beating people up, there's a certain cartoonishness to it.
Or killing a hooker and getting your money back.
Yeah, but right, there's a certain cartoon. We can see what you've been up to, but there's a certain cartoonishness to it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's outlandish, over the top.
It looks like you started the game, right? So in the YouTube video, you kind of see the beginning phase of the game here. Gene's going to maybe tinker around with it as I go through some more of this. But let me move on to the controversy as Gene maybe kills someone with a plastic bag soon. So the controversy surrounding the game stems primarily from the graphic manner in which the player executes enemies, which hopefully Gene will pick up the bag in a few moments, and you guys will see a murder and what it looks like if you're on our YouTube channel, Evil Examined. But in 2007, former Rockstar employee Jeff Williams revealed that even the game's staff were somewhat uncomfortable about the level of violence. And he was quoted, "There was almost a mutiny at the company over that game. It just made us all feel really icky. It was all about the violence, and it was a realistic violence. We all knew that there was no way that we could explain the game away. There was no way to rationalize. There was no way to rationalize it. We were crossing a line." So let's see. Are you what level of murder are you planning to do on him? Are you going to do?
I'm going to do extreme murder, so the highest level.
So basically, you can see on the sign it says "Kill this dumb fuck" on the wall, and an arrow pointing to him. Okay, so white, now it's yellow, so he's holding it, going to red, which is extreme, and there you have it. And he snaps the neck at the end.
Jeez.
So for those who aren't watching on the YouTube channel, the character Cash puts the bag on his head, suffocates him a little, beats him in the face until the blood starts squirting out, and then twists his neck in a 80s action movie-esque stance and just snaps it, and you can hear the fucking crack.
Wow.
But back to the controversy. I can't imagine why that was a thing after watching that clip. But the violence in the game drew the attention of U.S. Representative Joe Baca, who was a sponsor of legislation to fine those who sell adult-themed video games to players younger than 17. Baca said of Manhunt, "It's telling kids how to kill someone, and it uses vicious, sadistic, and cruel methods to kill." The media was also drawn into the debate. For example, the Globe and Mail wrote, "Manhunt is a venal disconnect for the genre. There is no challenge, just assembly line ritualistic slaughter. It's less a video game and more a weapon of personal destruction. It's about stacking bodies. Perhaps the scariest fact of all, Manhunt is so user-friendly, any sharp 12-year-old could navigate through the entire game in one sitting.
Yeah.
That sound about right?
That sounds about right.
All right, so now we're going to kind of get into the Manhunt murder, as I call it. So let me ask you your opinion first. We've broached this topic a few times previously on the show, but what's your thoughts on violence in video games and how it potentially impacts the youth, or maybe not even the youth, maybe older people, you know?
Psychologically, I can see how it can affect the developing mind and influence weak-minded kids, or older people too. But I don't know. Like I played my share of violent games. I don't see how it would. I don't see how it affected my temperament or my perspective on how the world works, because I was able to separate the two.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem, right? Like with the people that aren't able to separate it, is that the person who made the game's fault, or is that more on the parent and the individual, and how that person should be managed?
Yeah, because then that indicates there's more underlying problems, because it could be if they're that influenced by some sort of media. It doesn't matter if they're getting it from a video game or a fucking TV show or the news or a book or anything. It doesn't really matter. It's
like if you give a kid the ability to take a butcher knife out of a block and chop vegetables, you know what I mean? Like, that could potentially be a dangerous situation if the person is unhinged, right? Like, and they know what a knife can do to someone. But it's like, is that the knife's fault? Like, the knife is the tool, right? And in this case, the video game's not necessarily a tool, but an escape, which is effectively used by many people for enjoyment. And 0.007% of people maybe might have been impacted by a video game or something and did something. But yet it always comes up because people are looking for someone to blame, I feel like.
True. Yeah. Again, like how I don't know how long you have to be like the Clockwork Orange thing. They're forcing your eyes to like watch all this violence and stuff, and that in turn is influencing you and shaping your mind. But how long do these kids? First of all, how are they getting those games? Because there's a rating blockade. Mm-hmm. And for how long are they exposing these kids to, so the parents are not like monitoring the kids?
Right. It's pretty. What parenting? It seems pretty simple, right? Like for the most part, one parent is usually home to supervise the child. So like you just probably not checking on him. You know what I mean? Like and like really knowing what the kid's up to.
Yeah. Because
it shouldn't be that hard to knock on the door or to go ahead and take a look at the video game collection that he has in his room, Or her.
And I think like good parenting would supersede any other influences. Because if you're not teaching your kid and they're getting taught by a TV show or a video game, and that's their only source because they're not putting any input on shaping their reality. That could be an issue. Yeah, I see that a lot where they just, the TV's the babysitter. Watch TV for 8 hours. That's your perception of the world, is this fiction. Your parents not telling you the right from wrong, or, hey, this is how the world works. You're getting it from one source. I could see that as an issue.
Yeah, and the non-hands-on parenting, right? Just like you said, the TV's the babysitter. So I mean, with some kids, yeah, sure, it's going to be more challenging, but I think the larger majority of children, um, it's a parenting issue, in my opinion, because, there is the rare one-off, I feel like, where it's just like the perfect storm and there's not a whole lot they probably could have done. But I think a lot of these issues are just, you gotta be in there. You gotta be aware of what they're doing. That brings us to the murder of Stefan Pekera. And basically, I'm calling it the Manhunt murder because that's sort of like they tried to push the video game into it. Mm-hmm. So let's take a look here, right? It's a pretty fucked up story, honestly. So let's go back to, and this is about maybe a year or so, or less than a year after Manhunt was released, July of 2004. So Warren LeBlanc, 17, repeatedly stabbed 14-year-old Stefan Pekera after luring him into, I think this was in England. Yeah, Leicestershire, England. So they were in Leicestershire, England, and he lured him into a park. So he ended up pleading guilty to the murder, but let's hear some of the details about it, right? The video game obsession was one thing they highlighted. So Stefan's mother, Giselle, a research nurse, had to leave the court when evidence was being presented about the murder, which became too harrowing for her to handle. But following the hearing, she said that her son's killer had mimicked the game Manhunt, developed by Rockstar North, in which the players score points for violent killings. So, which actually I don't think there is a point system in the game, actually. So I believe that is a misconception right there. But Manhunt was banned 6 months ago in New Zealand by censorship officials, so that we kind of talked about that already. But Miss Pekera said, I heard some of Warren's friends say that he was obsessed with the game. To quote from the website that promotes it, it calls it a psychological experience, not a game, and encourages brutal killing. I think that's accurate. It is sort of a psychological experience. Would you agree?
What does that even mean, though?
Just like it's very like immersive is how I take it. Like you sort of dive into the world mentally, and I could see that, like, falling into the game. Like if you were playing that shit with the lights off,
yeah,
you would really feel like you're in it, because of how gritty it is, because of the things that the characters say. Like they'll fucking harass you too and be like, where are you, you fucking pussy? Like, I'm gonna cut your guts out, like saying fucked up shit, and it just kind of gets in your head. What do you think, though? You think that's a crock?
No, well, yeah, there's games out there that are immersive like that, but I don't think it changes it from being a game. That's what entertainment is. I feel like good entertainment is supposed to be immersive. So I'm not sure. So they were trying to categorize it outside of the game world. Like, it's not a game. It's a psychological reprogramming.
Right, like Clockwork Orange, right? Like,
yeah,
a psychological experience. And that's a quote from the game site, apparently. I didn't check, but that's what she said. And Stefan's mom called for violent video games in general to be banned. She said, I can't believe that sort of material is allowed in a society where anarchy is not that far removed. It should not be available, and it should not be available to young people. So she thinks it shouldn't be available at all, but particularly to young people.
Well, that's what the rating part of it is there for a reason.
Yeah.
Just like movies.
And I agree, 100%. But LeBlanc persuaded Stefan to go by the nearby Stokewoods Park, also known locally as the Dumps, to meet two girls. The court heard how he armed himself with a knife and a claw hammer to carry out the attack, which I believe the claw hammer is definitely in there. A knife must be in there, I would think.
Yeah.
Although I don't really particularly remember that, but he confessed to the killing moments later when he was found covered in blood by 2 police officers. So it didn't take long to figure out he was up to no good. And they found him covered in blood, and he said what he did. He confessed to the killing. And then outside of the courthouse, Stefan's father, Patrick, said they were playing a video game called Manhunt. The way Warren committed the murder is how the game is set out, killing people using weapons like hammers and knives. And there is some connection between the game and what has to be done, and what he has done. So he seemed like he wasn't saying that it was all the game, but he's like, there's a connection, you know what I mean? And then, echoing his former partner, the civil servant said, I don't play these games, but if they are influencing kids to go out and kill people, then you don't want them on the shelves. When police discovered Stefan, they found that he had sustained horrific fatal injuries. The boy had been hit so hard with the hammer that he suffered deep cuts into his head and neck. His head had been fractured in several places. He had multiple stab wounds, with the knife being plunged so deep that it caused serious injuries to his kidney and liver. A spokesman for the Entertainment and Leisure Software Publishers Association said, we sympathize enormously with the family and parents of Stefan. However, we reject any suggestion or association between the tragic events and the sale of the video game Manhunt. The game in question is classified 18 by the British Board of Film Classification, and therefore should not be in the possession of a juvenile. Simply being in someone's possession does not and should not lead to the conclusion that the game is responsible for these tragic events. Judge Michael Stokes said that LeBlanc had carried out a brutal, cold-blooded murder and could expect a life sentence. So, again, my heart bleeds for the parents. You know, this is a terrible thing that somebody got taken away, and I think I'd be more mad at the person than the game, though. You know?
Yeah, the kid that did it.
Yeah. Well, wouldn't you? That would be my reaction, is that the kid, I would be placing more blame. It's just weird to blame an object when it was someone's physical actions that actually did it. It's like blaming the claw hammer. You know what I mean? Yeah, it was used to kill him, but
what's the intended purpose of that hammer?
Right.
In video games, what's the intended purpose of the game? Although it's entertainment, most people would understand that. But what do you think? I think when she says, why do these games exist? What will your answer be? That's an interesting one. What's the purpose of that game? What benefit does it bring to people?
Well, I think it brings joy. For a person like me who is can separate the realm of fiction and reality, I love horror. Why do I write disturbing, disgusting horror books? It's because I have a fascination and a morbid curiosity. To quote Clive Barker, we shouldn't be ashamed of our morbid curiosity. It's only nature. How are you going to feel when you see someone get killed? It's just curiosity. It's human nature is the best way I can describe it,
Yeah.
And better that it's in a digital realm than outside of it, but sometimes it leaks outside of it, but we don't know that leak came from within the game. This is an assumption, I would think, What about you?
You're saying that most of us had that, ingrained in us as human beings. It's not something that sparked out of nowhere because of the game or because of the media that the kids are being influenced by.
I think
they never had that thought in their mind, but they played the game and I I wonder how it would be like to kill someone. You don't think it works like that?
I think that it can, but that outcome is 1 in a million.
Yeah.
And some people may say that that's too much, but I don't. I say that you make sure that those items don't get into those type of disturbed people's hands, whoever's watching over them. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of them, there's a percentage of them too that would have done it anyway. They probably had that. How do you know that they didn't have that thought before Manhunt? How do you know that they just weren't like Jeffrey Dahmer cutting raccoons open in the backyard just to see what was inside someone?
Yeah.
Again, the morbid curiosity. Morbid curiosity is good as long as it's, not taken to a ridiculous extreme. Obviously you don't hurt anybody. If you're just curious, though, that's why people become autopsy doctors, coroners. That's part of people's fascination.
Yeah, and I guess there's a place for those type of people in those professions too.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's where I stand with it too. Is like, if they're committing these horrific acts, I think there's something deeper than just the media they're consuming. It's because that wouldn't explain how some people decide to kill and some don't.
Right. I'm sure murder existed long before video games.
Yeah, just
didn't it?
If they pick up a history book, the shit that goes on.
Right. Did a kid kill another kid before video games existed? Absolutely. Tons of times it's happened. So it's going to be there regardless. And to associate the two without a concrete evidence, sort of like the Chicago Review said, right? They're like, this is an age-old argument. You know what I mean? But there's no way to prove it or disprove it. But again, I understand why they're saying it. They lost their fucking son in horrific fashion. They're entitled to their opinions. But I want to be able to play my Manhunt still,
You think this stuff is gonna get worse as technology advances? So like as VR becomes more mainstream. I mean, it's already somewhat mainstream, but when the technology gets to a point where you can't differentiate like what's reality and what's VR and virtual, you think like a game like Manhunt releasing on VR, where you're seeing realistic environments to the point where it looks real, photorealistic, the enemies look like real living beings.
Oh,
you think that's gonna be a problem?
That would be so sick. I hope they come up with like gloves where you could strangle someone. They should do gloves, dude. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like
you remember the old.
They're actually working
glove?
on that. They're working on the bodysuit where you can feel like pressure. They use pressure and like some haptic feedback. So if you get shot in the game, you'll feel it somewhat on the bodysuit, or you'll feel like pressure on there, so it feels more immersive. That's definitely gonna get more. But I'm saying like at that point, it sounds awesome. I would fucking sign me up. But
sounds awesome for a normal person.
For a disturbed person, I can see that being a huge issue. Well, they'll be strangling someone and it feels realistic and shit, and they wake up the next day thinking they're still in the game and shit, and you just start going on a killing spree.
Right. Again, and that's just something that you got to kind of make sure that those people aren't put in those positions, because it's the same. That's the same as letting them alone in the kitchen. Well, no, it's probably a little more. How do you say, like, giving offering of ideas, because being in the kitchen, it's like there's no influence. But yeah, if you're in a game like that, there certainly could be. But the detectives that were investigating this, they confirmed that while a copy of the game was found, was confirmed to have been found, but it was in Stefan's bedroom and not with LeBlanc. Stefan's parents blamed the game, which was drawn by some high retailers following the court case, So, like, in their estimation, they rejected the link to the violent video game, and it was found in the murdered kid's room, not LeBlanc. So, police investigators did not uncover any connections to the game. The motive for the incident was robbery, is what they ended up determining. They added, "We can confirm that the game was not found in Warren LeBlanc's room. It was found in Stefan's room. And in the wake of LeBlanc's guilty pleas, several stores withdrew Manhunt for sale." But it does say this, that other vendors continued to sell and their sales rose after that. The connection of violent films, Stefan's mother, Giselle, who called for these violent games to be banned, claimed her son not only had the game because it had been lent to him by LeBlanc. So she's saying that LeBlanc gave it to him and that it was his game. Warren LeBlanc gave Stefan the game just 2 days before he killed him. LeBlanc is responsible for what LeBlanc did, and what he did was horrible. He liked violent films and games, in particular like Manhunt. There are obvious similarities between the game and how Stefan died. But they also talk about misleading reporting, and for its part, the Entertainment and Leisure Software Publishers Association, the industry body for the video game, the industry body for the video game industry, was written to Home Security. It says they had written to Home Security David Blunkett about the media coverage of the case, and they said, "We have been very concerned recently about the misleading and disingenuous reporting about the effects of playing interactive game software. As you all know, despite many research projects into the effects of on-screen violence, some of which has been undertaken by eminent academics in our field, no link with violent behavior has been found." So, yeah, they're basically saying it was a crock of shit. It sounds like it was a crock of shit, and the police say it was a crock of shit. And eventually, Warren LeBlanc, he ended up getting a life term.
Yeah. The streets are probably better off.
Sounds like it. If you could just viciously lure your friend into a fucking park and beat him with a hammer and stab him to death. What a fucking scumbag.
Right. That's your friend. That's fucked. It's curious that the parents knew about the game but beforehand, but they let the kids play them.
Yeah.
So they unless they found out about the game somehow later on and they decided to blame the game.
But it's like she's like, "Oh, he gave it to him 2 days ago." Well, what the fuck you let him have it for?
Exactly. If you knew the game was so violent, that
shows
shows that you were aware of it, of the fact, and you still let it happen.
Yeah. Well, that's it, brother. That's the Manhunt murder. What do you
Chilling.
What do you think? Was this a good one? I know you're a big gamer, dude. So, and
man.
you know how much I love certain video games very much in particular, and this is one that's near and dear to me.
It was almost like watching an awesome review, like the gamer reviews.
Yeah, dude.
Channels.
That's what it felt like at first, right?
Evil Examine game review.
But we have to have some macabre shit attached to it, of course.
Only the most violent games ever released. Yeah, man, I love this kind of stuff. I don't think we cover many stories like this. I think there was just one episode when I did Hatred?
Yeah, we talked about Hatred and Rape Day.
And Rape Day, yeah. But yeah, this stuff is awesome. I mean, outside of what happened, it's a tragic story, but it's fun to talk about.
Well, that's what we're here, though, the morbid curiosity, right?
Yeah.
So
exactly.
So there you have it, guys. That is the Manhunt murder. our bonus episode of Evil Examined. We hope you enjoyed it. Next week, we should be back in full force. Hopefully, we can get a guest. I want to look and see if I can try and get a guest for us. And then, in honor of this video game, after the show, Gene and I will square off in an epic battle of various gaming activities. So,
Oh, shit.
That's going to be ill. But I will say, guys, remember to go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Like it, click the alert bell. Fucking, subscribe to us if you want the podcast just instead on iTunes and Spotify. Check out www.evilexamine.com for all the latest updates on what we're doing and new episodes and artwork. And if we have any videos that make sense to associate with the show, they're usually placed right on the homepage for you. And then also check out the Aaron Beauregard horror tab at the top of the screen, and you can see my different various horror books. If you enjoy a game like Manhunt, you probably enjoy a lot of my books, actually, if you're a reader. So I would strongly recommend it if you're into that type of shit. Donations are appreciated on the homepage of evilexamine.com. And we really appreciate you guys. We hope you like the new video episodes that we've been trying to put out.
Yeah. And we enjoy your company tonight. Virtually.
Yeah. Now go download Manhunt on the PlayStation Network, but don't fucking kill anyone. Just enjoy the game, okay?
Yeah. Just enjoy it for what it is. Sick.
And until next time, 1, 2, 3, Manhunt.
They're extra-dimensional beings that they are not what they claim to be.
Your life with dignity. Don't lay down with tears and agony. Living, you're looking at death. It only looks. Living is much more difficult.
Most of them don't assume you're actually going to kill them. Most of them assume it's a rape or something like that.
It was like anybody was fair game.
It did not matter. Blood is blood. It didn't matter man, woman, child.
At first, they thought it was a pack of savage dogs. But when they looked closer, they knew it was humans.
We left the curse. Say it! We left the curse.
We lit the gates.
A fire and death.
We lit it.
Oh, this is not nice. Judgment! Judgment! Say it!
Ah, we let the curse.
On her?
On her.
Future generations.
Future generation.